One abducted girl from the Nigerian town of Chibok has been freed and reunited with her parents. 7 years after Boko Haram militants kidnapped her and more than 200 of her classmates. Joining us now to speak on this and other security matters this week is a security expert and former assistant director at the Department of State Security, Dennis Amachree. Mr. Amachree? Good morning, Mr. Amachree. All right, thanks for joining us. Let us start with the release of the Chibok girl and the husband. What do you make of this? Is this good news? I mean, it's been years, 7 years, since the Chibok girls were kidnapped. A few girls have been released in trickles, but then a girl suddenly shows up with their husband, one of the militants. How much of a good news should we take out of this development?
Well, it's not actually this. You remember her husband surrendered and came with her.
That's correct. Yes.
And that is not actually the news. The news there is that a lot of Boko Haram fighters are surrendering. At least in the past 1 week now, we've had about 300 coming in. So it tells us a lot of things, which we might discuss in the news program.
Can we interpret that as good news? Like you said, the language is slightly different this time. It was less about there being a rescue and more of there being...
It is good news. It is good news.
Understood.
He was not rescued.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So instead of language being used as her being rescued, it seems as though it's been more so them surrendering. So does that mean that there was an assumption that both the Chibok girl and the person she had married while in captivity were both seen in the eyes of the law as Boko Haram fighters? Why wasn't the word rescue used for her, for example?
It was not rescue because maybe... the governor of Borno State, he's an ardent guy who wants to get them out. And whatever they do, they will start praising the security agencies, which is okay. It's a morale booster, but this is not a rescue.
Yeah. I mean, I get that point very clearly. Good news to the parents, definitely, and of course,
good news. Good news,
to the parents. Yeah. But then let's also speak about the larger implication of many Boko Haram militants or bandits, if you like, turning themselves in, especially in Borno State. We have had, so much of such from the army lately. What do you think is responsible for this development? Is it that they are feeling the heat, or are we witnessing something that we're not very sure of? In terms of people coming in, claiming they are surrendering, and then all of a sudden, attacks, are still happening left, right, and center. What do you make of all this?
No, since the death of Shekau, who is the commander, there had been this confusion, and ISWAP has been trying to take over or swallow, so to say, the remnants of Boko Haram. And then, of course, Boko Haram itself has remained as a group without a leader. And with the upbeat sorties and attacks by the Nigerian military, I think they feel that this is the best thing to do instead of continue fighting, because they are battle weary. It's been taking a long time. And with ISWAP coming in, I remember that they although they are all terrorist groups, they don't have the same ideology. So they feel that instead of following the ideology of ISWAP, they better surrender, because the Nigerian military has opened that gate that you can actually surrender.
On the topic, Dennis, on the topic of ideology, though, naturally in situations like this, in organizations like this, there is still a lot of respect held for a leader. But with the reports of Shekal's death, do you think that this is an example of the breaking down of this Boko Haram network, them losing their leader effectively? Has that resulted in this upturn of surrenderings that you mentioned earlier?
I think so. With the leader gone, and there is no direction again, let me put it that way. And for lack of governance in that particular group, I think they don't want to succumb to the new guys who are coming. That is ISWAP. And I think the best avenue for them for escape would be to surrender.
Okay, Mr. Amachree, how do you relate this wave of surrendering and the new thinking that you have expressed? How do you relate that to the pronouncement of the federal government through the Honorable Minister for Education, for state, who basically said that the federal government will no longer negotiate with, terrorists and bandits, given that the money that they collect as ransom is used to rearm themselves, etc.
So we can take a pause so we can listen. Sorry, Dennis. I think Steve would like us to listen to the words from the Minister of Education before you take that question. Let's have a listen to what he had to say.
We're working with the security apparatus in the country to resolve those and to put some measures in place ourselves and the continued dialogue with the Nigerian Governors Forum, as well as the National Economic Council. We're putting a ring around all of that. We've made some recommendations and some work is being done. State commissioners have been empowered to implement some of them, and the states have also taken major steps, either in bringing schools that are extremely at risk or those that are most vulnerable, because we've done a security audit of almost all the schools, especially those that are not within, those that fall within our suspect zones, and then bring them into some sort of conformity with what the Federal Minister of Education has designed alongside with the security architecture of the country to address those.
So Mr. Amachree, that is the context in which I asked, the question. We won't negotiate with bandits any longer. How does that work with those who are now, trooping out to surrender, if that is something that, in the first instance, we should believe, really?
Okay, I'm even surprised that the Minister of State is coming out, or should I say the Federal Executive Council is finally coming around to that call that we have been given, and other of my colleagues have been given, that, look, stop paying ransom. Stop paying ransom. And ransom has been paid. The Kaduna State Governor was the first to realize this, and of course he withdrew. He said he's not paying again, and of course they also are trying to test his will and see whether he will pay or not. But ransom payment should be zero tolerance, whereby they actually take the money and then re-equip themselves and then come back at you. So stop paying ransom, and I'm happy that the government is taking that stand now to make sure that ransom is not paid again. That is good. But when you relate it to the Northeast right now, you find out that the people that are mainly going for the ransom and ransom payments are the bandits who operate in the Northwest and in the Middle Belt. So these are two different groups. The one in the Northeast are Boko Haram insurgents or terrorists. The ones in the middle of the country are bandits, although they might have some affiliation, I don't know, but the ones that are surrendering now, I don't think have anything to do with ransom payment. And I think the minister's pronouncement, I think, is basically directed at those ones that are in the Northwest who have been attacking schools and looking for ransom payments.
Mr. Amachree, we will take a short break now, but when we come back, we will, of course, discuss this topic and the relationship between kidnappings for ransom and ideology. When we get back, please do stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. We are still joined by security expert and former assistant at the Department of State Security, Dennis Amachree. Dennis, thank you for joining us. Before we went on break there, you were talking about the differences between the bandits in the northwest and the typical stronghold of Boko Haram in the northeast is geography and ideology. Because they operate in different parts of the country, their ideals are different. But I want to ask you, with the death of Shekau and the resulting number of people within the Boko Haram organization wanting to surrender, and then with the upturn of kidnappings for ransom across that region and indeed the northwest, isn't this a bit of both? Whereas with Shekau, there was definitely a high level of violence in his own tactics and the belief that a lot of his followers, a lot of his own fighters were there almost in some form of captivity. With his death now, can you not see a link between people who are still committing these types of crimes doing so for economic gain? Surely it's more than just ideology now.
The terrorists of Boko Haram in the northeast were, so to say, under a kind of group. They are organized into a group where they belong. The bandits were itinerant groups that, either came into Nigeria through the porous borders, and then, of course, trying to use kidnapping as a way of raising money for themselves. So the bandits themselves are actually thieves, if you want to call them that. And then, of course, when you look at the Northeast, those are insurgents who have an ideology that Western education is bad and they are going to stop it. And of course, ironically, if you look at it also, the bandits are trying to stop Western education because in Kaduna State alone, about 5,000 schools have been shut down. And these are all part of the same ideology that they have. But actually, I think they are a different, they could be operating on a different platform.
All right, Mr. Amachree. But I mean, taking that further, would you think that, by your assessment, that what is going on could be that many of the Boko Haram chaps have realized that Shekau's approach was too militant, killings and everything, and therefore they are turning themselves in? Are we likely to witness, for example, from ISWAP, less of violence, but then taxing the communities where they operate a lot more? Less of violence, but then they are demanding for money, they're demanding for, other things to sustain their campaign and ideology. Do you see that happening?
Yes, you are spot on that. Because, yes, Shekau's ideology believes that for those who don't believe in us are enemies, and then, of course, raise them down, kill them, burn, and, destroy. That is different, slightly different from what ISWAP stands for. ISWAP actually will go around and overtake a village, for instance, and then, of course, supply. During the Salah, they were distributing food for them, for the villages that they've overtaken. And that was where we were even advising that I think what they are doing, they are fighting for the hearts and minds of these villagers, of which our own military should also do, because when you are not giving them what the other people are giving them, of course, these are poor peasant farmers or villagers, and they will go to where I think they feel more protected. So that is ISWAP kind of modus operandi, and a lot of these villagers had preferred to be with them, although they also collect tax. They also collect tax, but they also provide water. They do all kinds of things for them.
Dennis, I wonder if we can switch gears and talk about another story, one that's dominated headlines the last couple of weeks, is that of the fate of Abba Kyari. He is, of course, as we all know, has been mentioned in an indictment from the FBI, and that has also led to what is some have described as a desperate claim to defend himself. He's gone from saying his relationship with Hush Puppy was that of introducing a tailor to him, to more recent reports of him being involved in the arrest of one of Hush Puppy's alleged accomplices turned enemies. Just how much trouble is Abba Kyari in?
I think Abba Kyari has... how do I put it now? I think he misplaced, or should I say he didn't appreciate the pedestal on which he was put and was operating, and had to just throw it away, so to say, because he forgot himself. He started behaving as if he does not know the organization he belongs to. And of course, see where it has landed him, whereby he has lost his position. Even the House of Rep is trying to recall any kind of honor award they have decorated him with. So I think it's a very pitiful case. It's a pitiful case, and I'm I feel sad because I know him personally, and it's a situation where I think that he should have avoided.
I totally agree with you on that score, but then what he said, in matters like this, it is innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely. But now that a panel has been set up, yes, it's been suspended by the force, but then it's also answering to the questions that the panel that was set up, are putting up to him. What really do you think Abba Kyari should be saying or not be saying at this point? He has said so much. He has deleted quite a lot. He is very troubled, obviously. But how do you think he should handle the panel that has been set up, if we are to give him the benefit of the doubt? Because largely, this is essentially a long sheet of allegations against him. Innocent until proven guilty. How should he proceed?
I agree that he's innocent until proven guilty, but and being a very top police officer who heads the intelligent response team should know better. He should know better because he talked too much. He rushed to try to start defending himself. In cases like this, we don't expect him to say anything. In fact, if he was following the normal procedure, nobody would have heard from him. In fact, the society will be just worried about, let us find out what the investigation is going to bring out. But he was already judging himself in the public forum. I went to the social media and was defending himself, and then, of course, was recanting, and then, of course, putting in more conflicting stories on there. And of course, all these are not even the real stories, because the real stories are there. Over here in the United States, I think the FBI have gone further to, arrest 2 other people who are related to this Hush Puppy case. Because, in fact, he's saying that, he was just helping somebody, but that's not the way the FBI is looking at it. The FBI is looking at it as an international conspiracy or a conspiracy ring of which Abba Kyari is one of them. So we'll see how that pans out.
Understood. I mean, when you talk about seeing how these things pan out, I mean, it's a sticky one, isn't it? Because we do know, as it stands, the United States and Nigeria do have an extradition treaties, and I know that this is pending a judgment here in Nigeria. But if you were to weigh the probability and act as an actuary, you know, in this matter, do you think it will get to a situation where Abba Kyari will actually be extradited to the United States to face charges there?
I don't want to think so, because, you know, although, yes, the FBI has an extraterritorial powers, according to their laws, to arrest anybody, any individual who has committed an offense against United States laws. You know, so wherever you are, I think they will go for you. And that's why the High Court have said that they should investigate and arrest Abba Kyari. Now, Abba Kyari is a senior police officer. And because the United States and Nigeria are in very good terms, so to say, at least they are not in very bad antagonistic terms, they will allow the procedures to work. And the procedures are that if there is a law officer in any particular country who is involved in a criminal activity, they will not just seek for his extradition. First of all, they will do what the police in Nigeria is doing now. Is exactly what is happening. Number one, they will set up a panel, go through his case. If he's found guilty, then he will be dismissed. And if he's dismissed, then the FBI would want to seek for his extradition. But as a police officer, they will not seek for that extradition because he's a law officer of another country. He's a government officer, should I say, a government official. So they will not do that now until the stage where he has been found guilty, and then they will seek for extradition. And of course, Nigeria will gladly hand him over.
But how does that work with the U.S. court in California seeking a 10-day pretrial detention of Abba Kyari? Will that take into consideration the panel that has been set up to look at, you know, whether he's guilty or not, or is it just working on the discoveries that the FBI, you know, has made?
The district judge has said that they should go ahead giving them 10 days. I don't think that is going to work because I don't know whether the judge knew that this particular guy is not in the United States. He's in a foreign country. And of course, the judge is aware that extradition processes are not just one that you say, go and bring him. It's not your country. You cannot just do that. There must be a court process, you know, and then that court process will find the person guilty before the person can be released to you. So I don't think that what the district judge has said is going to be tenable for now.
All right, Mr. Amachree, please do stay with us. We will go on a short break, and when we return, we will continue with this discourse and hopefully expand it, you know, to learn a lot more as to what is happening to Abba Kyari. Do stay with us. You're welcome back. We're still on with Dennis Amachree, former Assistant Director at the Department of State Security, sharing perspectives with us on security matters, especially on the travails of the Super Cop Abba Kyari. So, Mr. Amachree, we were discussing on, you know, what the law says about, you know, what Abba Kyari is facing. But I'd like us to dimension it, you know, widen it a bit more. You said you knew Kyari closely. And I'm asking this as somebody who has worked in the intelligence community. How do officers, what is the charge to officers when it comes to personal usage of the social media? Abba Kyari as a super cop was all over the place. You know of a story going to Oba when Obi Kubana had the burial of his mom. We've seen videos of the former governor of Borno and the present governor of Borno. There was a claim that they visited him in his house, and then, a rebuttal came from the governor's spokesperson that indeed it didn't happen in Abba Kyari's house, etc. If you go through his social media pages, you see a lot of things that you begin to wonder, how could this be allowed for a cop, for an officer of the law? From your own experience, is that the standard? I know of a customs lady the other time who was suspended because of the manner in which she was using the social media, especially the Instagram. What lessons are there to learn from the way in which the social media portrayed Abba Kyari?
Thank you for that question. This is something that is a learning point for even officers that are in service at this time. Because when you find out that the social media itself contains a lot, and many people don't know that this is the situation, because there is no particular law among the services, either the DSS or the police or even the military, stopping people from being part of the social media. But I think it requires discretion on their own part. I have a friend in the FBI who told me that she does not have an FBI a Facebook account, and I asked her, "Why are you stopped or barred from doing it?" And she said, "No, I just don't feel like it because, as investigators, one of the different, one of the veritable tools that investigators use is the social media itself. HR people in companies, private investigators, or even other people who are trying to do due diligence will first go to your Facebook account, your Twitter account, and then, of course, look through and see the kind of person you are. So it is something that, of course, you are selling yourself out there. And the way the people use it these days is just incredible, whereby they are doing a party and the whole thing is there and they are spraying money and, exhibiting serious, how should I put it? Riches, showing that you have a lot
ostentation.
Conspicuous, ostentatious living. And, that is just not right, especially for a law officer who is investigating cases of kidnapping and all kinds of things. Now, people are actually coming out now and saying that, the cars that he sees that are being sold, he sold them houses and this and that he's very rich and stuff like that. Now, those are also open to investigation because he has set himself up for further investigation, whether they want to find out. Because as the saying goes, money does not hide. One way or the other, it will come out, even if you, bury it in a sock away, as we have experienced in our country recently. So it will come out one way or the other. People will know. So I think he actually set himself up in doing this.
I mean, as we've all accepted here, it is a situation where we can't get too ahead of ourselves. There is a presumption of innocence until anyone is proven guilty. However, in your opinion, how symptomatic of a bigger problem is Abba Kyari's case as it pertains to law enforcement agencies in this country? I can't imagine that you think that should Abba Kyari actually be guilty of the crimes that he has been accused of, even though we haven't even got to that point yet, that must be, do you think it's a situation where he is just one, or is accused of being one bad apple in an orchard of good apples, or is this something that shows that there's a lot of rot in our law enforcement agencies, and this is just happens to be one example of perhaps someone finally getting their just dues?
Well, this is very sad, especially when it comes to the Nigeria police. Because when you look at it, this particular case is involving one of the best, so to say, in the Nigeria police, and then you find out that there is rot in there. So how many more are in there or in other areas that we don't know about? But I believe that it will be a learning curve. A learning curve in the sense that, there are many things to learn from what the FBI has just done. Number one, the investigative processes in Nigeria should be reviewed properly, because we don't want a situation where you force people to confess or do duress, put them under duress. And this particular investigation, it is showing that the FBI has done their homework. And it is after they've all collected all the information about it that they now come out to say, okay, we want to arrest you. And I can tell you, if they actually arrested him, he will appear in court within 24 hours. Unlike the way that we do it in Nigeria, you first arrest and then you go and investigate. I think these are things that the Nigerian police hierarchy should look at very, very strongly. What are we hurrying for? Take your time, take your time, gather all the information, and then by the time you go for an arrest or you go for a search, you have all the things, all the intelligence available to you. So I think one thing we have to learn out of this, in the general, beyond Abba Kyari, is that there is supposed to be a serious reform in the Nigerian police investigative processes, whereby, even the new Police Act has said it, that most of the investigation they have to do now is to make the police more friendly. When you are arresting people haphazardly, they come to hate you. And there is this trust deficit between the police and the citizens. And I think they should start working on it. And these are the best ways of doing them.
You're very correct on that, because this also, in a way, speaks to, the NSAS protest of last October, for example. Abba Kyari himself at the time was in Lagos as head of the SARS that, people complain about. But where I'm going actually is to know your take as to, the sort of further lessons that should be derived from all this, especially as it concerns the personality cult, the heroism, the false heroism that seems to be pervasive. Abba Kyari himself headed a unit under the Inspector General of Police. But what we saw in the last couple of years is that essentially the credits were given only to Abba Kyari. When Evans, the kidnapper, was arrested, for example, we saw Abba Kyari beside that fellow, taking picture with him like, this is what I did. Whereas it was a team, that ensured that that guy was arrested. You mentioned what the House of Reps, has done, saying that, okay, innocent till proven guilty, to proving guilty. But then, if he's guilty eventually, we will withdraw the honor. What was the business of House of Reps in the first instance, giving a special recognition award to an individual who operated within the force, who operated within the unit? What sort of advice will you have going forward about this personality cult, in the police force, celebrating an individual, whereas it's usually it's a team that ought to be celebrated if there's a need for celebration?
Thank you very, very much for that question. Because it is out of, I should call it indiscipline, whereby you eulogize a particular fellow, and then, of course, according to Nigerians, his head grows big. And then, of course, he now does things that he felt is beyond or should not be touched. It becomes a sacred cow. If you look at the first tweet that he made out, the very first tweet when this case broke, he said that it's bad belly people that are disturbing themselves, that arrest, let them come and see who will be arrested. See, that tells you, that places you, that kid tells you where his mind is. Because he feels that he's above the law and nobody can touch him. And people are just talking nonsense, And I don't think that went down very well with some of the senior officers in the police themselves, because it's just a deputy commissioner of police. And like you said, it is just not right when you start to give honors. I have a national honor. And it's because of my activities with terrorists, which I have to arrest for the United States government and Nigeria. And when I did that, I didn't get that award until I retired. And it was after my retirement that I was called by the president to be given an award. So that's how it should be. It is not one person doing it. It's a team. I don't know, in the service that I belong to, you will never hear that a particular, even if they go and do something wrong, you will not hear that this is the officer that did it. You will not hear EFCC has arrested somebody and this is the guy that did it. It is a team thing. And until the people retire or after they have been removed from that area, then they should be able to honor them or give them an award. So you're right. I think that honor that was given to him became something that blinded him to all some of the things that are happening around him, where you are supposed to be going after fraudsters and kidnappers and stuff like that. And of course, you are being seen in the social media and even on television with people of questionable character, and then, of course, having parties with them. I don't think that is right. I think that led him into, what he has found himself today. And I think it's a lesson to all serving officers. They have to be very, very careful. The tendency for big people, let me put it that way, big people or people who have money, try to befriend senior officers in the security and law enforcement agency is very, very common, because you see that they want you to be their friend. And they feel that maybe when they run into some kind of problem, you will come to their succor. But officers should know their discretion. They should know what they are doing about it, instead of just letting themselves open like that for any kind of abuse.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so very much, Mr. Amachree. Beautiful analysis there. Hopefully, lessons will have been learned, and let's believe that justice will be served ultimately. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much.